Have you ever wondered exactly how much it actually costs to launch an online course? That's what we're going to dive into today and recapping the last two launches that I've had and the exact expenses that have gone into those launches. And so I'm sharing exact numbers here, exact profit, not just those big numbers that you might see of like this was a 100K launch or something like that. But what are the numbers behind that, right? And I think you'll be surprised too, comparing some of the different launches and how some were a lot more profitable than some of the others. So I'm so excited to dive into this. So let's just go ahead and get into it. And then I mentioned we're going to go over two launches, but actually I have three here. So the three main launches that we're going to talk about in our business and like the numbers behind it is the Business Confident Photographer course launch. That was all the way back in 2020. We're going to talk about the Reels mini course launch that was in 2021. And then more recently, the Instagram growth course launch in 2023. And comparing those different course launches and the expenses that went behind that compared to how much revenue we actually generated. So starting with the Business Confident Photography course launch. So that was a course that I created essentially for photographers on the business side of things and how to set things up really well, marketing themselves, all of that stuff. So for that launch, I spent $1,500 on Facebook ads. I spent $2,000 a month for a Facebook ads team. I did that for, I think, 4 months, a month before the launch, the month of the launch, 2 months after before I quit. And I spent $3,000 on email copy and sales page copy, which all of that came out to a minimum of $8,500 of expenses that I spent on that launch. It ended up being a $25,000 launch, generating about $25,000. So that means about $16,500 was in profit, which is pretty good. I will say I would probably bump off another $4,000 off of that for the Facebook ads the 2 months after the launch that were like related to it and trying to push the course that I did not need to be doing. So yeah, so I just wanted to share that because obviously that is on the lower side profit margin, right? After expenses, lower than I would want it to be. And that was one of my first big course launches. I did launch one other smaller course earlier that year. It was like more of a mini course. And that was about a $5,000 course launch. That was my very first course launch. And I did not do any ads, did not have any expenses, did it all myself. And yeah, so essentially I spent way more time on this course, a way bigger course, and did not profit that much more compared to my first course launch. Okay, so the second course launch that I really wanted to go over is the Reels mini course launch. So that was later, about a year after I launched the Business Confident Photographer. That course launch was the last like big thing I did in photography education before I pivoted into business education. So the Reels mini course launch in October of 2021, I hired a videographer. I had a video editor on my team helping to edit the course videos. I paid for some Facebook ads. I had a virtual assistant that I paid extra time for. And then I had Webinar Jam that I had to sign up and pay for that launch. I ended up with about $2,199 total in expenses. So way lower than that, around $10,000 mark of expenses, right, for that previous launch. And that launch for the Reels mini course ended up being about $40,000. So that means about $37,800 was purely profit. Insane, right? And we'll talk about time versus money investment too later, but this course was definitely by far my most profitable course, the most time effective course, and I also kept my expenses really low. So it just really proved to me after this launch, like doing more, spending more doesn't necessarily mean bigger results. Like there are ways to get great results without spending more time or spending more money. Okay, and then for the third course launch I wanted to recap is the Instagram growth course launch. That one was a little bit more recent in 2023. So for that launch, I spent a total of $279.35 on some Facebook ads to my warm audience. Honestly, though, I did not see a lot of conversions from that, so I shut them off after a few days. Couldn't prioritize the time that week to really tweak things and make them convert, so I just shut them down. That's really the only direct expense I had to the launch. Besides, I do have a part-time team member who works 20 hours a week in the business that I do pay, and she worked obviously a lot on this launch, but it's hard to really say like the exact time and all of that and what the expense would be, but yeah, okay. So that gives you a good recap of my past 3 main course launches, plus kind of I talked about my first course launch and exactly how much it costs to launch those ones, okay? And I also have a recap for the Business Confident Photographer and the Reels mini course. We did a YouTube video for each of those, recapping those launches, how they went, the strategy, the more of the numbers. So if you want to know that, we'll have the link in the show notes / description of this video / episode where you can go and check it out if you want to learn a little bit more about those 2 launches specifically. I also did a podcast episode recapping the Instagram growth course launch. Although it was a great launch, it definitely did not go exactly as planned as I was hoping. So if you want to see exactly, hear a little more about that, we'll also link to that podcast episode as well. Okay, so now I wanted to talk about here, now that we've gone over like the numbers for each launch, the time versus money investment for each launch. Just to really give you a good picture of like I mentioned, like compared to the Business Confident Photographer where I spent a good $10,000 on expenses directly related to the launch versus the Reels mini course was about $2,000, right? Like what's the difference? What made the difference there? And also my time and money investment. Okay, so Business Confident Photographer, when I tracked my time, I spent 173 hours working on that course, from ideation, creating slides, outlines, filming it, recording it. I edited all of it myself, uploading it into Kajabi. I spent 173 hours on that course. So that means I made and then based on the profit I made from the course, it was about $95 an hour in profit. For the Reels mini course, I spent 79 hours, so cut out like 100 hours of work, right? And again, it was a shorter course. It was about 4 hours long versus Business Confident Photographer was 14 hours. So there is a good bit of difference there, right? But I also had a video editor on my team. I had a virtual assistant. Like I handed more things off to other people. So I spent $79 or 79 hours of my own time on this course. And that means that with the profit in mind, I had about $478 an hour in profit. Like that's crazy, right? Just being strategic about the people I was bringing into my world, helping me with things that I didn't need to be doing, focusing on the things that I could do really well, and creating a course that was also very timely and my audience was really, really wanting. And then for the Instagram growth course, to be honest, I do not have the exact number of hours nowadays, and being a mom and popping in and out of work so much, I don't track that like I should. And so I don't have the exact number of hours. If I had to guess, I probably put in hours that were somewhere in between those two. And the profit, again, the expense was pretty low compared to the Business Confident Photographer. I did not spend money, like a ton of money on ads. I did not have an ads team. And the main thing was, again, that $279 in ads that I did run. And then I have a team member that worked extensively on this project, on launching Instagram growth for a good couple of months. So okay. So what are some things that I learned? Okay, especially comparing, like, obviously I spent a lot more time on that Business Confident Photographer course launch, but did not make as much as my Reels mini course launch. So what are the things that I think made that difference there? And what are the things I learned? Number one, done is better than perfect. I think I made this mistake too with Instagram growth, is I put so much pressure on myself to make things perfect, wanting the slides to be perfect, wanting the structure to be absolutely perfect, sales page to be perfect, emails to be perfect. I think I spent way too much time worrying about things being perfect and not just getting them done. And that's a big thing I learned from the Business Confident Photographer and then launching the Reels mini course. When I was done with the Reels mini course launch, I remember thinking, wow, like I let go of so much perfection in this launch and it still went really well. And I also learned you don't need the biggest, fanciest team to launch something really well and have a successful launch, right? Like I technically had a bigger team when I launched the Reels mini course, but I was strategic about who those people were. And technically my launch went better, right? Like numbers wise, it went better. I also just really enjoyed that launch. But yeah, you don't need a ton of people on your team or really expensive team members who are experts in all these areas to launch something well. So for example, for the business confident photographer, I did have someone like write out a lot of the copy for that, right? Like I had someone work on email sales copy for that. Versus the Reels mini course, I did a lot more myself. And I don't think there's like a right or wrong there, but it almost just proved to myself like, okay, like sometimes done is better than perfect. Like it doesn't mean obviously like if I want to invest in email copy for that, like I could probably see some really awesome results, right? But if I don't have the budget, like that at that time, I did not have the budget to hire someone again. And so if I don't have the budget for that, that is okay. And there's ways that you can launch something and do it like done is better than perfect than having the fanciest team or spending all of the money, right, on all the different things. And so to me, it taught me a lot about choosing smart investments, like hiring a video editor and teaching someone to edit for me and how the way I wanted it done saved me hours and hours of time versus hiring someone who already knew video editing and was going to charge me thousands of dollars to edit my videos, right? Or being smart about the way I was investing in something like Facebook ads, or I hired a videographer to film one video of my course for me where it made the most sense versus hiring someone to do all of my videos for me when I could sit down and do them myself. And so it's not that those things are bad, but I think there are ways to make smart investments in the way that you are creating something or launching something, and not just expensive investments that you feel like you should be making when you launch something and that you feel like should be giving a good ROI that maybe aren't actually giving you a good ROI. I've learned a lot about launching for sure, and it's something that I'm always learning. I am always growing. I'm always learning new things. Every single new launch that we do, there's something new that I learn about how I'm spending my time, how I'm utilizing my team, the team members we do have, what is needed there. And I've just learned so much about, I feel like there's a lot of pressure sometimes in the online business world of like, you need someone to write your sales page and write email copy and a professional videographer to do all your videos for you. And while those are amazing things, right? Those are awesome things that can be great investments, especially depending on where you're at in your business and especially financially, like where you're at. But especially if you're in the beginning stages, or even if you're a little further along, like I am, like I still film all my own courses. To me, it makes more sense to outsource other things that are going to give me like that I can easily teach other people to do and to record my own videos. But for some people, that's just not realistic, right? And that's totally okay. But I do think there are certain things that are going to be a good investment for you. Don't buy into like, oh, I have to, pay for all the fancy things in order to have a good launch. If it's something that's a good offer, you're presenting it well, you're clear on what it is, your audience wants it, it's at a good price point, don't worry about having the fanciest things. Sometimes just getting it done, putting it out there, you'll be surprised by the results of that. So I hope this was helpful. If you have any questions, feel free to drop a comment on YouTube. You're welcome to reach out to us via email. Be sure to watch those full launch recaps for Business Confident Photographer, for Instagram Growth, for Reels Mini Course. We have one for each of them. So we'll put links to where you can tune into those or watch those below in the description or the show notes. If you haven't already, be sure to subscribe on the podcast. You can subscribe on YouTube. You can subscribe, give the video a thumbs up, give us a 5-star rating on Apple Podcasts. It seriously means the world to us getting your feedback in doing these videos. If you didn't know, if you didn't hear a couple episodes back, we actually are trying something a little bit new. We are we're recording for the podcast and YouTube at the same time. So if you're listening to the podcast, I'm actually recording a video version of the podcast. And if you're watching on YouTube, there's actually an audio version of this video on our podcast. So I like that just because I like that flexibility in the content I consume, to know that I could either pull it up on my TV and watch a podcast on YouTube and watch the person talk, or being able to either finish that episode later on the go in via podcast form, or just listen to it on the go if I don't have time to sit down and watch it in front of my computer or my TV. So we have the weekly episodes going up that are the same every Tuesday on podcast and YouTube. YouTube will also get a couple, like 1 to 2 bonus videos a month that are specific to YouTube that just don't make sense in a podcast, like our Instagram Reels tutorials, for example, that's very visual, where I'm showing you how to do different things. Won't make a whole lot of sense on a podcast. So there will be some things that are going up just on YouTube, potentially some more personal podcast episodes to come as well. But The main bulk of it will be that weekly video, comes out every Tuesday, and it'll be on the podcast and on YouTube. So subscribe to both so you can stay up to date on both of those. We have links in like YouTube. There's a link to the podcast in the description. Podcast, there's a link to our YouTube channel in the show notes if you're trying to check out any of those. Okay, I think that's it. Thank you guys so much for all your support. If you have any questions, again, let us know. And I will see you guys again next week on Tuesday. Bye, guys.